Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to 300 Podcast. Today we have Superman himself on the mic, and we're going to talk about some field archery. What's going on, Dimmer?
What's up? Not much. It's a
I'm here
beautiful
too.
afternoon, evening to talk about field archery.
Yeah, it is. How's it going, Matt?
It's going. I'm just going to
Yeah.
sit back quietly and kind of listen to y'all a little bit because I know zero about field.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Since we have 0 tournaments per year here with that.
It's like that a lot of places, I think. What do you think, Dimmer?
Yeah, I've shot. That's the one thing I always talk to the people overseas whenever I shot anything world. They're like, oh yeah, it's got field archery is great. You probably shoot it all the time. I'm like, no, it's for people like us, we're at a huge disadvantage against like the Euros that shoot it all the time. Like I've shot maybe 10 rounds of field in my entire life.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
That's
I don't have many. I don't have many. I have just a few. 2 state tournaments, and then World Games and then team trials.
Yeah, and that's
And
what, for
field,
me. It
that's
was always the trials, and if I went to Worlds, it was Worlds, and then the one freak year was World Games. So like, it's usually just a one and done if decide to shoot at all. So we don't really have that many options.
Yeah, well, considering your accomplishments with only 10 tournaments under your belt, you're a pretty stout shooter at field. What do you so you were maybe going to make this field nationals up until at some point recently you decided not to come. So how do you approach, since we don't have a lot of tournaments for it? Say you were going to come to our field nationals or trials, how would you approach coming up to a World Archery Field Tournament?
I'd start out with like a basic tune and get that and try to find something that's pretty forgiving and you can hold a good line. That's where my standard setup comes from when approaching field, and that's relatively easy. Like it's all easy if you keep it in the simplest form possible, and that's with everything. That's with a 3D tune, a field tune, a 50-meter tune. Like field, I would just set it up what I think would work based on my poundage. Go to 30 meters. Well, I'll go to my 30-meter crawl where I think my 30-meter crawl would, and just start bear shaft tuning and get it close. And once you get it close, start putting down those marks on the tabs and kind of measuring, kind of keeping notes with the biter plunger, see what your tensions are, and just run through 5 to 50 marks and see what you got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how important for you is a tune? Because you talk to some people, and they don't really get into the tune for field too much. They'll aim off. They'll do some things to try to hit in the middle. And I know you, and then myself, getting into it based off of lots of talks with you, that we maybe put some extra work into our tune, because it seems like you and then myself, we believe that a tune is very, very important for field, just to maintain that good line.
Yeah,
Would you agree on that?
Yeah. So with years of doing this, I've developed kind of like a baseline score of a mock field marked round, so to speak, where you have your 4 class targets and then you have your 3 set distances that you have to shoot them all. So I generally know if I shoot on flat ground where I should be at with my tune score wise. If I have to make a bunch of adjustments in my plunger, I'm not that worried about it. But usually if I have to make a lot of adjustments, my scores just aren't quite in that, that tier where I would keep that tune and just keep working it. So once I get my marks and stuff on my tune, I'll shoot a score and see where it is, see where the potential is. So let's say, you shoot around, if you shoot a 5 average, you shoot a 360, right? If my initial tune, I go out where I'm still finding marks and stuff, is right around a 340 to 350 mark, then I know it's a keeper. I'm going to play with it a little bit more and see where I'm at. If it's like 330 or below, it's junk, and I will kind of revisit that tune, whether it be up the poundage, down the poundage, shorten the arrow, add more point weight. until I get another decent tune that I'm satisfied with, then go shoot another score. So for me, I could definitely see the difference in scores in my tune. And they might be 10 points off, 15 points off. But, when you're fighting for every point you can get, a 15-point difference in tune is huge.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. How do you approach? So, over here are the few field ranges we do have. We don't have a lot of dealing with like uphills, downhills, and
Mhm.
side hills are pretty easy to do. How do you deal with your uphills, downhills, and side hills?
So that's something that's going to be very personalized. The way I handle uphills and downhills might be different than the way you handle them or Matt handles them. That takes experience. Unfortunately, you're not going to get a cookie cutter approach on that one. I'm not very limber, especially in my back area. I'm pretty stiff. So I don't have that flexibility where I can maintain like a T formation and just be unbalanced a little bit and kind of like maintain that bend in my back. So I'm like kind of perpendicular to the ground, however the ground's laying. So I just stand up straight and shoot it. So sometimes I'll be like this, and then sometimes I'll be like this. But my body is pretty straight and stable. So knowing that over the years that I've shot it, and I've try to seek out in the very beginning is very important to seek out somewhere that has angles that you can practice and get an idea of what you need to do. And if you keep your form and your approach to those angles, it's not going to change. So like if you learn your cuts, if you keep the same, formation, the cuts are going to be consistent year in, year out. So that like, if I was going to shoot the field nationals this year, I wouldn't even bother practicing the uphill and downhill. I already know what to do. So for me, it's kind of weird. So like if I'm standing and I'm looking at a target way up top, my draw as I come back, my draw actually shortens because I'm not in that T formation. I'm like an abbreviated one. So instead of like if I'm here, I got probably a 28 and a half inch draw. But if I'm here, I'm probably like 27 and a half, depending on the angle. So normally you would have to cut yardage if you're shooting up, if everything's the same. If you shoot 28 here, up here you're 28, you're going to have to cut yardage because the distance is actually shorter than what the pace steps are. If you're shooting 50 meters at an angle like this, you're probably shooting like 47, 46 yards of actual distance. So normally you'd have to cut, but for me, it works out great. Like basically, I don't have to do anything. I just shoot it for what it is because my draw length actually shortens. There is a weird. It always worked out. It was kind of weird. I did have. I would say it was a 22-degree angle on the one hill that I could practice. That one was the only obscure angle that I had to change anything at like 20 meters. I would actually have to add yardage to that. And then the one world championship I shot for the team, we had to shoot a 30-degree uphill at 50, and I didn't know what to do. Took a guessed wrong. Apparently 30 degrees uphill at 50 meters, I just shoot it from 50 meters and I would have been fine.
Right.
I cut
Yeah.
because it was kind of weird. The distance I shot before that was similar angle, but like I'm trying to remember if that one was 40 meters. I shot like 3 ring low, so I figured farther. Maybe that was just a bad shot and just dropped it low and just short drew more than I normally do. But
Yeah.
for that's what I normally am. For the downhill, it's a little bit different. I actually go off of my riser. Like, so if I come up to, you're not allowed to draw off target, especially if it's downhill. You're supposed to draw safe, so no accidents potentially. So I set up my pre-draw like I'm perpendicular to like a flat plane. So I set up like I don't draw. I'm just setting up my bow. How you see people a lot of times. They'll bring their arm up and then they'll bend at the waist and then they draw. Right. Well, I can't bend at the waist and draw, so I just pre-set up. and then I kind of look down to see where that target is on reference to my bow. And I know from years past that if that target, if I'm looking at it and like here's my grip, and that target's like right here, I know it's a 2 meter cut straight up. I don't care what distance it is; it's a 2 meter cut for me. And then when I was shooting the Gilo, I knew the bottom weight was a 5 meter cut, straight cut. And then I would just vary the difference. And if it was halfway into my handle, then I knew it was a 1 meter cut. That kept it super simple for me. And that never changed from the 10 shoots I've ever shot. That's never changed.
All right.
So it's
That's
important
good.
to keep your form the same and your approach the same. And then if you do that, nothing's going to change. It's always going to be the same. So it's pretty.
Just figure your system out. Yep.
You do it once, and then you got that information for life. You don't have to worry about that ever again.
Yeah. I knew for me going back to Yankton in 22 that the lots of ups and downs, side hills and stuff. So I needed to dust up on all my cuts, and mine are, I approached mine a little bit different than yours. Like you said, we're all individual, but once you figure it out, it's super easy.
Yeah, that's the same thing
Super easy
for 3D too. Like if I go to the IBO shoot or something and I'll do the same thing. Like I'll pre-draw, like I'll preset up. I won't draw, but I'll preset up, see where that target is on my bow. And if I think that target's 30 yards and I'm down here, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna shoot for 28 and let it rip. And it's usually, if I make a good shot, it's money.
You're right.
But the side hills, that's a little tricky. You always got to lean into the hill. It's almost to the point where you don't like. It feels a little awkward because you like if you stand.
Like you've gone too far.
Yeah, it's like you got to go. You got to go to that space where you're just a little uncomfortable, and that's usually that's the
sweet spot.
Yeah, that's usually where you got to be.
Yep. Go, and it's like, oh, this is good. Nope, go a little bit more.
Yeah,
I think I'm too much. Right there, that's good.
Because if you're fortunate enough to shoot in a group with a good shooter, it's like you can be back there with your buddies, and you're watching the guys pull up and shoot, and you're like before they let go of the arrow, you're like 4-ring left, shoots the arrow, 4-ring left because they didn't lean into the hill. Mm-hmm. They were in a comfortable position, but they didn't realize when you look at like the trees or something in the background. And that's something that you can always look for is if you have any kind of straight growing trees behind the target, try to be in line with that tree and maybe just a little bit over. Because your body's naturally it's going to want to rebalance itself after you let go of the arrow.
Yep. That's good stuff there. Let's go with this. Let's go with, what do you think a first timer beginner's biggest mistakes are coming into field archery?
You have people that like want advice, right? And they seek out someone for advice, but then they never follow up. They always look for that cherry pick information. Hey, what's that good piece of advice that you can get? And then there is no such thing. There is no good thing, like no good piece of advice. There's a multitude of things. So don't be shy. Reach out to somebody that has done it and just talk to them for an hour or something if they have the time. And you're going to pick up a lot of little tidbits, and they all add up. There's not going to be that one thing that's just going to, turn your 300 round into a 350 round. It ain't going to happen. There's always a bunch of little things that add up. So I think the biggest mistake a first timer does is don't seek out every single bit of information that they can. And then aside from that, it's just usually a crappy tune, or they went into it with no like practice, unbalanced shots, hills, nothing. Like they just went into it thinking they're going to be great because they shot like just flat land all the time.
Yeah. What about just a like a general, somebody that's done it, and they're trying to get to that next level. What do you think somebody like that's big mistake is?
Ooh, that's a hard one. Their biggest mistake. A lot of
Or
times,
what? I guess what could make them go to the next level? Like a average decent shooter. They want to they
practice.
want to they want to give Demmer a run from his money.
So
What it
practice on a course that's going to be harder than anything you ever shoot at a shoot. Um, so to give you an idea, like I'll throw some numbers out there. Like my flat round, when I'm prepping for some, my flat round marked round will be, if it's under 360, it was not a good day. I'll average somewhere close to pushing 370 every time. Like my average might be a 370 if I'm having a good day. But my practice scores are usually 330 to 335. Um, but I will set up on a course that makes me have bad footing, makes me unstable, not to the point where I'm just making bad shots, but I have to learn to develop those little muscles, that little stabilizer muscles. I'm shooting side hills, I'm shooting uphill, downhill, anywhere from 5 to 15 degrees up and downhill. And I'm shooting side hills, anything from like little subtle 5-degree side hills to 30-degree side hills. I'm shooting like really tough courses. So it's if you want to take it to the next level, you have to seek a place, shoot at a place that has all these these targets that you can set up that are about as uncomfortable as you can get, and practice that. So I know like my practice ranges, I'm probably going to shoot any national tournament better than my practice range, because nobody's going to set up that practice range harder than I do.
Right. No, that's good stuff. You got to make it hard, guys. Got to make it hard.
And there's
Practice
always
hard.
if you live in plains country, then it's going to be hard. If you can find property that has like trees or something, and you got a pulley up that thing, shoot up angles. Just be safe about it, or grab a tree stand, climb up in that tree, and then shoot from your platform, because you're going to have uphill and downhills. Grab stupid stuff like a piece of plywood and a couple 2x4s, and shoot off of slants. Put the boards down, shoot off a slope, something, because all that stuff is going to nitpick your scores. And if you don't learn how to deal with it and think about what's actually going around on you, like you're on a side hill just a little bit, like your feet or your toes are maybe 1 inch above your heels. Okay, well, I know that's going to make me want to drift left. So I'm going to have to make sure that I'm overcompensating a little bit, so I'm not going to drift left. Because the problem is, if you're not aware of these things and your first shot goes left and you're like, made a bad shot, and you shoot another one. Next thing you know, you shoot 3 arrows in a group like this and they score 3-3-3. That's not going to do you any good. So, even if you live in a plain, like the plains area, you have no excuse. You can make it as hard as you can given those certain circumstances. A lot of times in state parks, you can get away with a lot of things. You can carry targets and shoot in the woods, especially like game lands, like up our way. If you take a couple light targets with you and go out in the game lands and set up in the summer, nobody's really gonna say anything.
Yeah, nobody probably even be there.
Yeah.
Yep. What's your least favorite distance in face? Marked? Well, it doesn't matter. We'll get into the marked versus unmarked, but marked round. Your least favorite distance in face.
This guy, it's. I wouldn't say it's my least favorite, because like I don't have. Well, I would say, okay, my least favorite would be the 5-meter bunny, only because I'm never truly satisfied with it unless I shoot 18s. But I know the 17s. I know the 17s will happen. Maybe not every other time, but it might happen every third time, maybe every other time. But my favorites were always the max distance on that target face, because I know those are the ones that you're going to make up ground. You're really not going to make up ground on the 5-meter bunny. If anything, you potentially could lose ground on it. But those max distances ones, those are always my favorite, because they're the ones that I practice those a lot. Those are the ones I'm going to try to make up ground on.
Yeah, I approach that the same way. What do you think, Matt?
Dude, I'm clueless, to be honest with you. Like, I feel bad because I feel like it'd be a super fun game, but since there's none of those around at all, I just can't even. I don't have the want to even try to consider messing with it.
Yeah.
Because for one, I suck at tuning badly, and two, I don't really care to do it very much at all.
Well,
And
how do you tune 3D? Do you tune for 3D?
yeah, but very little.
Very
So
little. So
oddly enough, I'm shooting my like I thought having two bows would be really cool, and like I'd be able to have like an indoor bow and an outdoor bow, but come to find out, I use the same one for everything.
yeah.
But you know those parallel pros.
Mhm.
I can actually. I don't normally ever do this, but I can actually bear shaft to 50 meters with those,
Okay.
and somehow, and they're like in the gold. And for 3D right now, it's the same thing. So I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm just super weird, and I don't know. I feel like I don't tune very well, but honestly, every time I go to tune for 3D or something, I call Ryan and kind of he just walks me through how to do that every time.
There you
I
go.
mean, it's true, but it's like a 3 or 4 minute ordeal, and we're pretty well lined out. I
Yeah.
feel like
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. So
And
the field isn't much harder than that. Like, so if you approach your 3D tune, you just change your distances for the field tune, and you'll have something pretty close. Like you'll have something definitely workable. Um, and then off of that, it's just going to be little micro changes.
so do you find? I do have a question on the tiller thing. So since like I have big crawls and y'all will have big crawls shooting field, is there a specific crawl you like tune to? Like, do you get a perfect tune for like, say, what's your longest distance in field?
50.
50. Okay, so do you like try to get your best tune at 50 or your best tune at like midway or what? Because kind of what I found back whenever I actually tried to tune like really well, like I would actually use string blur a lot and I would tune to like the middle. You know what I mean? Like, so say average shot on a 3D course was like 25 yards, right? Or 24 yards, whatever. I would try to make it to where my string blur was like on my riser or whatever. And this is before I really got decent at that. And I don't even mess with string blur hardly at all anymore. But so what I would end up having to do is actually on close distances, I would have to run my string blur way out,
Hmm.
like to the right. And then on the far distances, I would have to run it way in. And I hated doing that. So what I started doing was tune to 30 and make my string blur just that way. I just moved it one way and I never got confused. But maybe
Yeah,
that's
no.
just my small brain.
My old partner Alan, he used to shoot the same way. That's how he shot field. He'd constantly move the string blur, but he would do a simple tune. He just tune it for whatever it was, 30 meters. I tuned for 30. He would just tune it for 30 and then just move the string blur. Where I would tune for 30, but I would manipulate things until I got my plunger tension movements, the smallest that I had to. So I could, I sent Brian some notes. I think this tune I had it where it was only 2 turns on my plunger from 5 to 50 meters. That's all it was. Uh, so I wouldn't have to mess with. I never mess with string blur because I hate messing with string blur because I feel like my form's changed enough where it makes it a little bit uncomfortable, and I would rather not put myself in the position to shoot an uncomfortable shot if I didn't have to.
Yeah.
I hate the string blur thing, man, because I focus on it too much. Whenever I would use it a lot, I
Yeah,
would I
yeah,
feel like I would just end up looking at it more than I would look at where my tip is or whatever, and so it was super hard for me to kind of follow. So I don't even mess with it anymore at all. So which probably screws me, but I
yeah.
don't
I,
know.
I I approach the 3D the same way. I just tune it for 25. Um, so 30 is pretty good, 20 is really good, and then you might have a freak thing to try to manipulate for like 5 or something. But usually the field tunes or the 3D tunes super easy. Like nothing really moves more than a half inch on impact of the
Yeah.
target. So I don't even mess with my biter at all.
So typically, like, are you set up with like the light spring and like how do you normally start out with a medium spring or light spring or where do you start out at?
I usually start with a medium spring.
Is that normally where you end up with too?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Medium spring, and I'm usually like 2 to 3 revolutions for my base from weakest to strongest. So I'm at like 20 to 30% max tension. And that's usually where I'm at, and usually I can keep everything within usually everything between 2 and 4 on the tension level. So between 20 and 40% is usually all I have to mess around with.
That's my only questions.
I think I'm right. Trying to think of where I'm at. I'm right in that about that same range on my biter.
Because I found if I try to tune it for midway or more than midway on the tension setting, I don't get enough play in my arrow movement when I'm making the dial adjustments. That it's not worth trying to do. So I always just bare shaft until I'll just move my center shot in and out until I'm hitting that the second setting on my biter. So I have movement in my plunger if I need to use it to manipulate the arrow impact. I'll run it through all that on the medium, and if it still doesn't work, I'll go through I'll try my weak spring, and then if that doesn't work, then I just scrap the tune and try a different arrow. A different arrow like spine length combo or point weight combo. But usually I'm always my final tune, my best shooting tune is usually always my medium spring, but I'm also usually in that 42 to 43 pound mark on the fingers.
Okay.
Yeah. That rolls us in really good on that.
Well,
Go ahead,
so
Matt.
and I did. I come into something weird like last week. So I was trying to set that or fix my bow, or not fix my bow, but get a better setup for what I was going to go do. I went and shot that little Paris thing, that little 3D deal. And my center shot, I'm using the blue plunger button, and man, for some reason, I just still hit consistently right. So I'm in the medium spring. Of course, I didn't bring anything with me, and I'm like dialed all the way as hard as I can get it, and I'm getting it to hit about where I want it to, and so I would end up having to run string blur on it. But so for some reason or another, I feel like I need to put another button in there, I guess, to push center shot out even further, because I can't. I'm all the way maxed out on the plunger itself. So I don't know. I mean, and so I powdered everything up because I thought I was probably just getting some kind of weird bounce or hit, and my arrows come off clean, so it seems anyway. But I didn't spend a whole lot of time doing that either. So do you ever end up having to do that, like move center shot out even further than the blue one?
Yeah, I'm usually using the blue one or the light green one. Indoors, usually I'm not in that range. I'll be probably on the blue to black one. But usually I'm in that blue. I would, if I can, even if I could still shoot the blue or the black one, I'll still shoot the blue one just so I have that option to change it if I had to. If you haven't done any different things on your 50-meter bow to your field or to your 3D bow, chances are you're running too stiff of an arrow.
Yeah.
And you're getting that little contact on the end, and it's just keep drifting them to the weak side.
So that was definitely the case, because I switched bows out and gained I went from 34 pound limbs almost maxed out, or basically maxed out, to the 36s, and my arrow flight got, I bet, 80% better, and it hit about 80% better.
Yeah. So rule of thumb, like for me, has always been, if I'm shooting 43 pounds for field, and say like whatever, let's just say 5/8 knock point. If I took that same bow and wanted to run for 50 meters, I just take a turn out. So I would run at like 42 pounds, and I would just lower that knock just a smidge, and that would be just about a perfect tune. So my guess was you're probably a pound, maybe a pound and a half off on your tune.
Yeah,
that would be my guess before you even did anything else.
Yeah, and I put point weight in it to try to get rid of that even more, and it just didn't seem like it did anything. Yeah, I don't really get a whole lot of results with point weight for whatever reason.
That point shank.
You're not going to with a 166. You would on like a 23 diameter, where all that point weight's going to be right at the very end of the arrow, and you're not actually stiffening the spine because of the arrow shank, like like Ryan was saying. So the 166, I don't get that much manipulation on point weight.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean you could do like tungsten.
I don't think they
shank's
make
super
them for
short.
166, do they?
I don't know. You can, depending on, you can get, I don't know, you'd have to look at the top hat stuff, but
They used to make
different
a hollow
versions.
one. Yeah.
Yep. And then if you get some of the break offs that are like the 120, 110, 100s, or you could do the 80s, 90s, and 100s, the shank lengths are different on those. So you could have 100 grains and then have a softer and a stiffer arrow just because the shank length is that little bit difference. But that's very small. So you just have to, you got to play with it.
And really,
and it's hard to find sometimes,
yeah,
stuff like that.
And I've got some of those. I've got some 570s, I think, which I think would be probably pretty perfect because those 520s I chopped down a little much, and they're just not. I mean, they're hitting well enough, but I haven't. I shot my first 50-meter round with it the other day, and didn't shoot great, didn't shoot terrible, but that's when I found out 2 pounds added to my bow was pretty huge, actually. So, and it just immediately hit better. So, yeah, that was pretty interesting there. So, I'm going to play with those 570s, and I can probably get those to tune in pretty well.
I'd venture to say that, and, Demmer, you tell me what you think. I'd venture to say that majority of people are probably running way too stiff of a spine of an arrow. I'd say that, and, Demmer and I talked about this recently, and then I talked about this a bunch. I did that boot camp thing and had a lot of, tune, right? That's what I was there for, talking tune stuff with folks. And a lot of people are talking to that same thing you just did. Well, it's like, well, I keep getting right hits, and anything I'm doing, or the best one is you start turning tension in and your right hits get worse. And it's because you're increasing the spring tension of your plunger and it's bouncing harder. So that's his telltale signs right there. And Demmer, he said it good the other day. We were talking that kind of stuff, and he goes, the closer you to get, like a tune that's just a little stiff is terrible. Way stiff we can make work. We've all done it probably. I know I have. Yep. And you get a little stiff, and you start getting that little contact that gets those wild hits. And then, but he said it good the other day, Demmer. He said it gets much worse before it gets better when you start bringing that tune in. And I think that's where people stop.
Yeah, where they stop where it gets bad.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
The worst contact you can get is the rear end of your arrows. That's the worst contact you can get. Because your groups literally will go from this. Like, you get groups like this with your real stiff arrow. But once you get it towards where the contact isn't running before you're fletching, but after you're fletching, their groups get like this. Like, they get to that, like, oh crap moment. What is going wrong? But then if you just plow through it and then you just quick add 2 more pounds, then it go right back in.
Yep. Yeah, they do. Yeah. So you generally shoot, do you find that 42, 43 pounds just where you like to be for field?
Yeah, that's usually, like, in the past, that's kind of like the arrow setup that I always end up running. I'm usually flirting with a 700 spine arrow in that poundage. I've shot 39 pounds in the past, but that was where I was running too stiff of an arrow. I was running a short 600, even though the tune showed good. I would get some inconsistent results.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's still shot decent for a stiff arrow. Like we talked about before, you can shoot pretty good with a stiff arrow. But I found that weird. Like, I shot the first time I shot Hoyt, I shot my 600s. The same setup I shot my Gilos, and that was also the first year I started shooting 50 meters. So this is probably the first time it really showed up, where I shot the 600s and it'd be like, you shoot an end, boom, 58. I'm like, all right, that felt great. Go down and grab, come back, shoot another end, felt good. Walk down, 52. And you're like, okay, come back down, shoot another good end, 59. You're like, all right, back on track. Come back down, shoot again, it'd be 51. You're like, what the frig? Like, they all broke good, and it was just like, it went on for like an hour. It was just the end score was still good. I mean, it was still like 650, something like that for practice. It was still good. But then it was just frustrating because you shoot a great end and you would get rewarded with a great score. And then you shoot another great end and it would be like, what the frig? Like I shot that one just as good as the other one. And then just the one day I just grabbed my arrow. And that was the nice thing about those nanos where they had like an ice coating, kind of like the VAPs.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of carbons, you don't see the contact, like, because there'd just be streaks from the plunger, but a lot of the black carbons you don't see. But the ice coating, you'll see that. They'll chip that coating.
Yeah.
And then I
Mhm.
grabbed it, and I'm like, so mad. I was like, grab my nano. I was going to snap it in half. And I start to flex it, and I look down. I'm like, what's this? Like 5 inches in front of the fletching, I see like my coating's chipped. I'm like, all right. So I ended up being 4 pounds off on my tune.
Yeah. Clear
And
dried up too.
yeah, and it was I grabbed, the next day I grabbed the 700s and shot it, and it was a little contact towards the back end, so I had another pound, shot it, and then all of a sudden it was just like it just started hammering and started shooting like 670s on a regular basis. And that was just the difference between a stiff tune still shooting good scores to the appropriate tune shooting great scores.
Yep. Arrow change right there.
Yeah.
What? Yep.
But it was funny that like in that transition as I was adding poundage, like the arrows, like I could shoot that stiff tune with bear shaft, and the bear shaft would hit the eight and in every single time. But as I was going up in poundage, trying to change the tune, like all of a sudden, like instead of shooting like mid 50s for ends, they started getting to like the upper 40s. and then the flight started getting a little squirrely. You start seeing this in your arrow flight, or you start seeing twirling a little bit because it was running contact closer to the rear end of the arrow.
Yep.
And if you don't believe, like if you don't think that's if that's a possibility, well, I don't have them anymore, but I probably at one time I had a biter pin graveyard of like 8 pins that I have snapped because the arrow's not clearing coming through, and it's catching the slightly bigger knock collar on the pin knocks and just grabbing that pin and just snapping it right in half.
Yep. I had some chunks. I was showing you guys pictures the other day of that. I run the blue stem too, and sure enough, on the VAP, the factory pin bushings is that little bit oversized, and I have chunks in it shooting my Gilo setup, and which had me cranking them back into 42, 43 pounds. I run at really short 800s with 80 points, and clear.
Yep.
Luckily I'm shooting at Hoyt now, and I think I'm around 39 pounds with it, and I'm getting clearance. So I think it's maybe just they're wound all the way in, and I don't know the preload, and maybe just a faster limb or whatever is giving me some clearance. But
yeah, a broken biter pin is like probably like it's not something I'd like to have happen, but when I see it, I know the solution to it, and it's easy. It's just crank that limb another pound and a half, and I'm golden.
Yeah,
like I don't need to do anything else. If I had everything bear shaft tuned, and that was the only issue I had, and all of a sudden I snapped a pin, then I know that like the clearance just isn't there, and I'm only like a pound and a half away from like being from a perfect tune.
All right. So now you rolled into, so you shoot, you really like those nanos, and then what are you shooting? Were you shooting Super Drive micros here recently for what you were just playing with?
Yeah, the field tune I had set up was the Super Drive 675 spine.
Okay.
Running around 42 pounds. I'm messing with the aces right now. And that's the one thing that's nice about like having weight on your bow and having like an off-centered weight. You can manipulate that bow and how the bow reacts. Because sometimes when you shoot and that bow like it twists just a little bit, that's gonna like kind of magnify the contact on your plunger and your rest. So if you can have that offset weight, get that bow coming off straight, and then that you can work towards your better tune that way. But right now I'm messing around with 620 aces. But chances are I got that pretty good. I was rough last week when I first quick tried it because I got sick of trying to shoot those X10, those 550 X10s out of 45 pounds. It just, after a while, it's like if I can't shoot every day, it kind of sucks.
Yeah. Yeah,
because
for
I'm
sure.
not used to the weight, and then like the variances of ups and downs from end to end. Because one time I'm pulling at my normal weight, and the other time I'm short drawing a 1/4 inch. But chances are I'll probably end up going, if I can get my hands on. I still have those parallel Pro 710s that I'll probably mess around with after the Aces. But if all else fails, I'll probably just go back to the 675 Super Drives.
Yeah. Do you think you're the 620? You said 620 ACs, right?
Yeah.
How good are those looking right now?
Right
They
now,
look
not.
promising or not bad?
Yeah, promising. Yep.
Okay.
But I'm in that. I'd have to shoot him for a while because I know I'm like just on the edge of tune, just based on
Mhm.
everything I've shot in the past. Because right now I'm at like 42 pounds, 41 and a half,
Okay.
42 pounds. I got those 36s buried, so I know
Yeah.
I'm right around that 42 pound mark. So I know that one might be a little touchy, but we'll see.
Yeah. I have a feeling I want to try those so bad. I don't know what spine, and based on the 800s, I think a 670-ish would work for me. But they're going to be quite a bit heavier than my VAPs, and I can just reach 50 now, so I don't.
Yeah, that's something
I'm
that
not.
that's something that we have to always think about too. Is speed ain't everything, but
Yeah.
it comes into play when you're trying to hit a certain distance and not changing your form at all. Or if you
Yeah.
find an anchor point that you really love, it's tough to give that up. That'd be the last thing I give up on a shoot or a tune, would be my desired anchor point
Yeah.
if I can.
Yeah. I'd have to probably start getting uncomfortable low.
My aces,
Or I'd have to definitely put in a long time of getting used to it.
my aces are pretty light. They're 270s,
I don't know if
270.
I don't know if I could reach that. I'm running like 255.
Okay, I'm
And I'm
running a short-ish
just
ace
getting there.
with 90 grain. I'm running 90 grain points.
Okay.
The aces themselves are pretty light.
Yeah. 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 I'd have to at some point mess with that. Of course, you like a biter plunger.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. 10 clicks of 10 rotations of 10
Yeah,
clicks.
it's easy. It's easy to memorize notes when you have 10 revolutions, because you can
Yeah.
always. That's something that That's why I got a piece of paper here. Probably don't. That's something that you always have to keep in mind when you're shooting field. You're not allowed to keep notes. So, and anything outside of the rule book, you're not allowed to keep on hand. So you got to have a little bit of a memorization game. So the nice thing about the biter is, like, say, I'll just quick write a little mock chart. So like, I'll just write a couple distances. To 2.5. So like, I know it's not going to be great for the audio, but for the video. So like that would be my distance to 5 meters, 10 meters, 15, 20. And so when I'm writing notes that I have to memorize, I'll write down like, okay, that's 5 meters. I'm at tension 2 on my biter. So I'm at 2.0, 2 full rotations. So that's something that's easy to memorize, and a lot of people don't. If they're messing around with the tension, it's something that they always forget. But I always keep notes where my tensions are for my different distances, and the biter just makes it simple because it's easy to remember. Some people just keep it super simple and they write down like tension 2, tension 2.5, tension 3. But when you get into like the 18 graduations, it's hard to remember, especially if you're super anal about it, right? If I'm super anal on the biter, it's going to be tension 3.1, right? But if you're in that same mindset and you're running something that has like 18 graduations, now you have to memorize, 3.17, 2 point, whatever, 05. You have that extra third digit, and I don't know. I like the simplicity of the biter. 10 graduations per revolution. and I have never been in the position at any distance where I'm really have to worry about in between clicks.
Yeah.
I don't. If you have to worry about your being in between clicks, your plunger is probably set up in too sensitive of a setting for your tune.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Unmarked round versus marked round. How often do you practice an unmarked round?
0.
Same here.
I did for the first 2 weeks of my original practice ever,
Yeah.
10 years ago or so. And then after that, I'm like, this is pointless because I know the distances. Why
Yeah.
do I need to practice the unmarked distances? Yeah, so 0 time because I want to practice the hardest game. So if you practice as hard as it can get, it's going to be easier. There's no sense of sit there and try to pound the unmarked distances, other than if you want to just learn how to gauge distance. I mean, you can do that without shooting. I'd rather just if I'm going to shoot, I'd rather spend the time shooting the harder stuff. So the easy stuff is super easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Figured that much. So let's go back to, and I'm not sure on this, so correct me. So you were on 2016 World Field team, correct?
I don't remember the years, but okay.
You were
Okay.
on one.
We'll just say yes.
Was that Ireland?
I don't remember, but we'll just say yes.
Good job, Brian.
I was
Well,
at
world
one,
research.
I was in Ireland at one point. Yes.
Okay. For some reason, I thought that was 16, and then in 18. So did you do 2 back to back?
Yeah, I did 3.
3. Okay.
Yeah, Croatia was my first one, and then Ireland I think was my second one, and my third one was Italy.
Okay. Okay. And then 17 was World Games.
Yeah, that was in Poland.
Okay. What was that like?
Pretty cool. Hung out with some people from I went to the opening ceremony, so we got to hang out with some other athletes. I think the ones I was the only one there from the archery team to do the opening ceremonies, but that was pretty neat. I hung out with the disc golfers, not disc golf, but they're the let me take that back. It wasn't the disc golfers; they were on the frisbee team. So
Okay.
it was like ultimate frisbee, I think is what they call
Okay.
it.
Okay.
They proceeded to show me their highlights from YouTube. And I'm like, okay.
That's cool. That's cool.
Sounds like a dangerous game.
It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird, I don't know. It was weird, but okay.
Kind of like disc golf.
but yeah, it was a fun experience. I got to spend some time in the motherland, so that was pretty neat. Actually,
Yeah.
I'm not a pierogi guy, but the Polish pierogies were freaking way better than Mrs. T's. That's just trash.
What is that?
A pierogi?
Yeah, I've never even heard of that.
Yeah. So it's yeah, Ryan, you've
I'm
heard of
from
pierogies, right?
I've
Get
never heard of it.
out of here. You must not have any Polish near you guys.
We're from the Midwest.
So it's pretty much like it's it's pretty much like dough wrapped, whatever inside is wrapped with. It could be meat, cheese, potato. A lot of times it's potato. So that's
Pizza
what
pocket, basically.
Yeah, so it's kind of yeah. So a lot of you can boil them, you can bake them, you can fry them. So that's what most people around here, they're either baked or boiled. Usually people don't fry them here, and they're potato. They're the inside's a potato. But over there they did everything. Everything was a pierogi. They put everything in it. You could do it. You can make it like a little mini calzone, but it's a pierogi. Everything else is what's inside is a calzone and stuff. So that was pretty good. But yeah, it was pretty neat.
Awesome.
Cool. Brogies.
But it was also neat walking around the city too, because like they still had a lot of battle scars from the wars. They still had like the bullet holes in the buildings and stuff, where you can see
Really?
the patchwork and stuff. Yeah.
No,
That
that
would
would
be
be
cool.
neat. Yeah. Yeah. Do you got any other field teams planned for the future, perhaps, or you think you're done?
That's probably it. I'm probably done.
Probably done
Save
doing
it
it.
for you. Save it for you youngsters.
Yeah. 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 No, you had a good run.
If
Did you?
I wish they had them. I would prefer to shoot field over 50 meter. I'd prefer to shoot field over 3D, hands down.
Mhm.
It'd be. I would rather like field. 3D is my least favorite. 50 meters my second, and then field is just it's the tops. Because it just you have so many things coming at you. You have so many distances. Your tune is more important, so that your craftsmanship is definitely a higher priority. Your knowledge of the game. 3D is, I think, there's a lot of dumb luck hitting a circle this big and just
That you
not.
can't really see a lot of times.
Yeah,
It's a blind aim a lot of times, yeah, for sure.
yeah, that and you might have a great round going and you make one mistake, where you just screw up your yardage one time and that could be the game for you. While this other person and you're just set pound and center, and the other guys just keep jar licking things like 4 inches away from center, but still catching the same amount of scoring rings. Or can miss the target, by a foot, can miss the bullseye by a foot, but caught it in the upper right hand corner of the 8 ring, and then you miss the center by 3 inches and you're a 5. I think a lot of that's just weird. But yeah, field. I'd shoot field all the time if we had the same following in field as we did for 3D or 50.
Yeah.
100%.
It
Yeah.
looks like a fun game. I mean, I would 100% shoot it if we had them.
Yeah.
Because, it looks like it would be a blast. Because, honestly, I kind of like the long distance thing.
So we got.
Like, that's pretty well got to be my favorite.
They have the field for NFAA as well. That's going to be in Yankton this year, but I'm not going to that. But they're going to have it again in Mechanicsburg, PA, next year, and I'll probably go to that again. That's only 2 hours away. That they shoot. I don't know if it's 18 feet or 21 feet, something like that, to 80 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that'd be fun.
There are hardly any arrows past it. Like, there's only I think the whole time there's only I don't know, 6 arrows or so past 65 yards. But yeah, that one, the Mechanicsburg, if you're going to shoot any of them and if you're going to take the time off, Mechanicsburg is the one to go to, because they'll shoot it all 5 days. The other ones have voted for 3 days. So Mechanicsburg, you can shoot Wednesday, Thursday, Friday if you wanted to. If you didn't have that time off, then you can shoot Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because they only take your top 3 scores. Your animal, you have to shoot the animal round. They only do that once, but they alternate the field and the hunter round. Like, they'll shoot field like Wednesday, hunter, Thursday, animal, Friday. So you have to shoot Friday no matter what, and then they go field and hunter again Saturday, Sunday.
Could you shoot like a field round and then shoot another field round and then they take the higher score?
Yeah. So if I shoot Mechanicsburg, I just shoot all 5 days. They'll take your highest field, they'll take your highest hunter, and then they'll take your animal round, and then they add them all up, and that's your score.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Last time I shot it, it didn't. I just shot it just to shoot all 5. It's going to be down there anyway, so might as well.
Yeah. Might as well. Yeah.
My field and hunter rounds between day 1, 2, and 4 and 5 only varied 1 point each one.
That's not like you were dialed.
112 arrows, and they only varied 1 point.
Wow. I don't know anything about NFAA field. I've never shot around.
It's weird. It's different distances, different size targets. You shoot like a 55 centimeter target instead of a 60 or an 80. Their biggest one is 55 centimeter. So they're smaller. The distances can be farther. Sometimes they're not. But the 4 ring is bigger, but the bullseye is smaller. And the 3
Okay.
ring is obviously much bigger
Right.
because they only score it 3, 5, 3, 4, and 5.
Okay. Yeah, we've got there's a field range. Well, it's down by Indy, so it's basically 2.5 hours. It's a decent one down there, but I've shot our one state World Archery field down there 2 years ago, and then now it's up actually where trials is gonna be is where that club there is where we shoot our state 50-meter
Yeah.
infield there. So that's coming up. That's in 1 week.
But the one thing you do have to learn, an additional thing shooting NFAA field that's how to stack targets, because chances are you're going to be past your point of aim.
Yeah.
So you have to learn how to stack targets. Like my point on usually is like 60. So 65 meters I'm top target, or I'm like 1 ring above the top of the target. And like 70, I would be, there's a couple options to do. I usually just figure out what crawl and then put the target on my shelf. So I might shoot a 50 crawl and put my shelf right on the target. And 80, I would use my 60 crawl and put the shelf right on the.
That's how Kevin Jensen approaches Reading.
Yeah. And that just takes practice. Because like tune to tune every year is going to change that a little bit. So that's something you just got to figure out how to stack targets.
Yeah. What do you think, Matt?
I think it's all over my head.
No, it's not that hard.
So
just got to get out.
You got to shoot a Buckeye or Lubbock?
It's not off the. It's not off the board. It's not on the board either. There's a possibility you shoot the senior games. There's only 2 more weeks to sign up for that, so I got to hit up Frankie Boy and see if he still wants to do that.
Where's that at?
Cleveland.
Okay.
And I believe that's a double 900 round. They shoot that 2 days. And they got age brackets. I think they have 30 to 40, 30 to 39, 40 to 49, 50, 59, 60, 69.
I don't know anything about most of that stuff. Man, I'm terrible at keeping track of all the rules.
The Buckeye is the thing that does suck about the Buckeye is it's always during ETAR. And that's just a traditional gathering that we like to do. Where you just camp, drink, have a good time, just bust on each other.
It looks like fun. Yeah, I've seen some videos of it. I'd go to it, but I'm probably going to go to the Buckeye thing.
Yeah. If that's
for whatever reason.
If that's not on the board, then the Buckeye might happen. We kind of living in this side of the state kind of sucks. Everything's like for you, Buckeye's pretty far, but it's one of them things. It's just they're just all annoyingly far. Like they're in that weird range where it's like, okay, it might be flyable, or you hop in the car for 10 hours.
See, so I'm in the worst part, I guess, of the country, because even those 3Ds, I have one of them that's pretty close, but the rest of them are all of them 10, 11 hours.
Yeah.
Last year, Pennsylvania's, I think me and Jeremiah made that drive in 23 hours. It was terrible. And then, yeah, they're all just super far. So
yeah,
it's all terrible. Y'all need to come down south, I guess, for some.
Buckeye's close for me.
Buckeye's only
for
3 hours.
Go down there and catch malaria or something.
Negative.
Down in the south.
It's a dry heat. Dude, I'll be honest. Last year at Outdoor Nationals, it was hotter there, I think, than, well, maybe not hotter there, but it was freaking hot. Like, I wasn't expecting it to be like that.
It's and that wasn't
humidity.
It wasn't even bad that time. Yeah, we're always humid for some reason.
Yeah, it was definitely humid for sure. I wasn't expecting the humidity, I guess, because we get a lot of it, but it's normally gone by August. It's just a super dry heat here.
Yeah, I'll get if I'm back when I was serious about shooting like 50 meters and stuff, like super super serious. Before work, I'd go out and shoot, and it'd be it would be like 50 degrees out in the morning some mornings in the summer, but some mornings it would be 70. But it was always like you had to take the rosin bag no matter what day it was, because it was always like in the morning it was like 80 to 90% humidity every morning. So you're slipping, even though it's cool. Your hand's slipping on that grip every time. It's you'd have to have it. It's a necessity.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about indoor nationals this year? You excited for that?
Oh, yeah, no, it's another one.
I'm not going.
Frick, like, I swear sometimes these organizations just set up something where they set up like a survey to give the people the idea that they have an option of choosing where to go, and then they just, oh, you know what? We'll just stick it in this place so we have to deal with less people that come to this shoot.
Yeah, that's got to be the route they went. Because man, I don't know anything about Chicago. I mean, I hear of it, but I don't watch the news. Like I don't ever do any of that stuff, so I'm kind of oblivious to all of it. And as soon as they came out with that, Davenport sent me a text and said, "Well, you're not going to go to indoor nationals this coming up year." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "It's in Chicago." I was like, "It's fine." He's like, "No, you're not bringing your wife and daughter to Chicago." He's like, "You're staying home." I was like,
Well, I think it's on like the Navy base, which is fine. But the picture that everybody was sharing was like peak conditions where your summertime everything looks super nice, but they didn't show the winter where it's blistery cold and you might have weather off the lake. And if
I
you're
about
flying,
guarantee it will be. It's going to be
in
terrible.
O'Hare is the worst airport to fly into.
"Oh my god, yeah, for sure."
There's always delays. There's always like the lost luggage is higher rate there. The delays are higher. It's just
May die.
probably not. But then the other down part is there's no
Could.
fucking scooter patrol.
I'm mostly bummed about the scooters.
Like
I'm still recovering, dude.
I don't know why they moved. Like especially that time of year, if they're gonna move it and switch, Vegas and that, and Louisville would be much better. Somewhere, a little further down on the latitude lines.
Yeah.
Man, honestly, Louisville, like the past 2 times I've been, I've had more fun at that shoot than I've had at any other one.
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's just I like Louisville. Like it was nice. Of course, I like Vegas too. Vegas is super nice because of the weather.
Yeah, Louisville's nice because you got everything in that centralized location, and if you wanted to go somewhere and you want to hop on a scooter, you're there in 3 minutes. Vegas, you might have to hop a little bit longer at Vegas, but the Vegas will actually probably be better now. In what was it going to be, March? Because the weather's going to be actually nice. You can probably like hop in the pools and stuff in late March.
Man, it was super. The first or last year before last, it was like mid 80s when I, because come back from Lancaster and then went straight over there like a couple of days later, I feel like. And then I think it was a couple of days actually. And then, man, it was like mid 80s. It was super nice over there. It was nice there this year too.
Last 2 Vegases I went to, we went to a couple of the parks. There was snow.
Really?
Yeah, it was cold. It was cold and windy at Vegas the last time I went. The last 2 days there was like 30, 40 mile an hour winds and just cold, like 40 degrees. So like the street life was like done. There was nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we drove in a snowstorm heading from Death Valley coming back one year.
When's the last time you went to Vegas?
It's been, I don't know, 4 years.
Okay.
Something like that.
You got any plans to going back?
Probably not.
No.
It's okay.
Basically, you're just going to start disc golfing?
He's
what it sounds like?
he's just going to garden and fish, it sounds like.
Garden fish, very much.
It's going to be a grumpy old guy, I guess.
Yeah, be a curmudgeon. Play Magic.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well.
So the only thing we can really count you in for is Lancaster because it's
Oh,
the
for
closest
sure.
for you.
Yeah.
Won't miss that.
It's the only legit indoor tournament all year.
Dude, I like Vegas too. I don't get it. I like the accumulative score mainly because I screwed myself this year and got my butt smoked. I understand now. I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
the draw. That's
so
the draw, and that's why
so
it's
that's
so
what
big.
makes it. Yeah, that's the hard part is like, and that's why only like it's kind of weird. You need luck, but I don't know. It can
Or to
get
just shoot phenomenally throughout the whole thing, you know.
yeah. It's which is impossible. Because like every year, whoever wins every year, there's always that one match they probably should have lost, but they didn't because they ran into the right opponent at the right time. Like even like when you won it, you had a subpar round. Everyone I've won it, I've always had one subpar. Raymond probably should have got knocked out against Joel. There's always the door is always open. At one point, it's always open for somebody. That's what makes it hard. Because that's it. Like you can shoot whatever. You can shoot a 570 pace, right? But there's always going to be that time in that your normal round where you shoot a couple 26s and a couple 27s in that round. And you just don't know when that's going to pop up on your matches. It's not like you choked. It's part of your normal scoring round.
Just depending on where it was at.
Yeah. Yep. And there's always that.
Yeah, because because I really never have shot just crazy high scores. Like I know you've shot some really super high scores, but I really live in like that mid to high 70s range. You know, like I'll occasionally bump into the low 80s, you know, and like sometimes I'll get on a pretty good run, you know, but not often. And actually, you know, what's funny is once we got through and I got beat and everything, I went over there and started shooting like the next couple of hours or whatever. And I shot my best round I've ever shot in my life. And I shot it against Nathan Shaw's son. So the compound, Aaron Shaw, pro compound. So he beats me at barebow probably every time he shoots too. And dude, he's good. And we went over there and shot, and I think he shot like a 285, and I shot like a 296, which was my best round ever. So anyway, of course, that was pretty terrible walking away from that, but I was happy I shot it. But that was by far the best thing I've ever done. Because normally, even with 11s, I'm only like, well, I don't ever count them at home, mid 80s, you know, something like that. I just shoot pretty mediocre.
But
I mean, those are good scores. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, that's the range you need to live in, and that's going to always keep you in it. And then the difference is that, you know, if you run into the wrong person at the wrong time, like Larry's on a heater, sometimes there's nothing you can do, and then sometimes you run into the match where it's like, all right, well, who's going to actually win this one because we're both sucking.
Yeah.
I shot my first match against Bill Chenard one year, and I barely broke 100. But I shot good enough to move on. And then the next one I shot like a 119.
Oh God.
So it's like, and then my next match, I think I was at a 91 or a 92 after 3 ends, and I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna put the arrow in the red and just shoot it because I'm up 10 points. There's no sense of trying to go hardcore at it and just screw things up and then shoot an 888 and end up with like a 115 or something and moved on. You just don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a fun game, and that's the benefit of Lancaster too, is, you know, truly somebody who you never would have thought would maybe win will win, you know, could possibly win for sure.
Yeah.
Because especially when you get up on the stage, you know, personally, I don't think it bothered me because I couldn't see anybody, which I think was awesome. I don't know if you noticed or not, or maybe I had tunnel vision or something, you know, but I didn't really see anybody because it was super dark, but so I didn't get nervous. But I think I was more nervous this the next year for sure than the first one, because the first one I had nothing to. It didn't
Yeah.
matter. It
Yeah.
was just like whatever. I'll go shoot.
It's the
And then the second one, I was like, I was fighting myself. Still do. I mean, I fight
Yeah.
it pretty hard now, but
well now you're living in the expectations realm, and that's a whole new animal to deal with.
yeah,
Like whether it's expectations you put on yourself or others put on you, it's just it's a whole nother animal that just magnifies the intensity. In I don't know whether it's self-worth or not, but it just builds on it, and that's the hardest part of that whole thing. The easy one, first one's the easy one, because there hasn't been but one repeat winner.
yeah,
It's tough to do.
Yeah.
yeah. I figured that out directly. After Lancaster, the first time I went to Vegas, done really well. Shot to where I thought I should shoot. I had one off day. Well, no, I didn't. I actually shot really well. I just had a malfunction of my stuff. But after that, Louisville was where I struggled bad. Like, I don't even know. Whenever I started shooting, I couldn't even remember if I got it to the gold or not. You know what I mean? Like, it was super duper weird. And then I, obviously struggle with that now too. Not as bad anymore. I've kind of figured a way around it, but that was pretty difficult, because I'd get to where I never got to where I couldn't let go, or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it was definitely getting it to the gold and just dumping it,
Yeah.
And fortunately, I figured out a way to get through that. Sometimes
Yeah.
at Vegas this year, I shot really well and missed the target because it just was one of those, like I watched your miss back at Lancaster, and like you can see that you just let go. You know what I mean? And I watched mine. Luckily, my wife was videoing my screw up there behind me, so I got to see how bad it was. But like I got back to right here, and it just went. And I was like, man, I don't even know. I have no idea what happened.
So mine is always mine's always I feel like I already shot the arrow, like the shot is over. And then that's the moment, that split second where I quit on my shot and start relaxing. That's where everything starts coming in, and then the fingers just super relax, and then they just go. So that's why they always go way right. Because it's not technically a collapse; it's just a quit on the shot. Like in my mind, I already shot the arrow. Like it's gone. Like I can't fathom that the arrow is still there. It's just pull back, aim. All right, it's gone, and then I just start like normal. Just start bringing everything in. When I bring everything in, my bow comes in a little bit, my hand comes in, and then it just lets go because my fingers are super soft by then. So it's not like a panicky shot or anything. It's just in my mind, it's gone, but it's not.
So you don't ever have an issue getting it to the middle at all?
Very, very rarely.
Okay.
My issues this year were, I would say, not maybe a little expectation this year, but it was more, I would not fear of missing, but expecting not to miss, kind of.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of times that the shot was just a little apprehensive.
Yeah.
That was my issue this year. But that's just a mindset you got to get over and just get back to just putting it on the center and just letting it rip, and it hits where it hits. You can't, once you get the arrow there and you let go, you can't control it. You never really can control it. You just got to run your shot and trust it. And I know it's the same old cliche, just run it and trust it that it's going to be there, but that's kind of what you got to. That's the attitude you gotta just put it there and rip it. There's no sense of just thinking of other things or just whatever. Just
Yeah.
You got one simple task, just freaking do it.
And when you like think of it like that too, because I've done that a lot, and you try hard at doing that, it always works. You know what I mean? Like, because I can shoot here in my shop and just be real dedicated to getting into the middle and just shooting it.
Yeah.
And making it super simple like that, and it works every time.
Yeah, and
But
it's usually, and when you do that, a lot of times your arrow might not be breaking in the middle, but you still hit the middle more times than you should have because you give into your body of quick readjusting on its own.
yeah,
But if you try to force everything, then your body can't do that. Your body can't naturally recover and put it where it needs to be.
I don't know. I still suck most of the time now. So yeah, it happens.
Yeah, I know all about that, guys.
Did you even make the shoot offs, Ryan? The top 64. Did you even make it?
No, I missed it by a point, guys.
Yeah, you did.
A point. Yeah, that
Oh.
was.
Yeah,
You'll make it this year
that's all. It's all in the past.
if you switch up that tab. You'll make it.
I don't know if I'm gonna switch up a tab, guys.
Hey, so
Maybe you'll
actually-
switch up your bow.
There's a good chance for that.
yeah, well,
maybe
I'm actually going to ask you a question about that in a
10
minute.
times between now and then.
Holy crap!
If you come back to the next Lancaster with that bow setup, you're gonna get smacked.
Dude, you're going to have to do
No.
something. Sell it. Do something. That way you don't have to, because you're trying to switch between 3 bows right now.
No,
I think you're just going to have to pick.
I've quit on the one. I've tested it enough, and I know that it doesn't work for me.
You know really fast. If you're a field shooter, you know really fast if it's gonna work or not.
Yeah,
Indoors you can fool yourself. 50 meters you can fool yourself a little bit, but man, when it comes to field, you can't fool yourself on that.
Yeah, and even going into it on like base tune, like I sent you those photos, or I think I sent it to Matt. Actually, I did just a super base line with the two bows, and one was just down the middle, and the other one was like, and all the arrows were like leaning.
Yeah,
and it was like, why even fight it? Why even fight it? So yeah, and I don't shoot it well. I just don't shoot that well. I don't. It feels good.
Yeah.
I just don't shoot it well. And so no, it's gonna be. I'm gonna probably sell that off, and then I would like to try a set of like 38 or 30 or 40 pound Axias on my GT though. I would like
That way
to.
we have something else to throw into the mix.
I'd be
you
curious.
give me anxiety when it comes to shooting bows.
I'd be curious to know how that shoots. But I'm pretty happy with the GMX and the Axios right now.
The other question I had actually was hold on, screen went black. Can y'all see me?
Yep.
Okay. So when you grip your bow, do you like push your hand up into the throat of the grip and then like pressure throughout the whole palm, or do you like focus it on the heel? Or because I feel like I struggle with two things mainly, and I feel like a lot of people probably do, is where to apply pressure, or it's just something that's naturally the way your hand ends up in it. And then I got another tab question after this.
So I don't heel it. I don't throat it. I put it like my hands on top of the grip, but I don't put the pressure here. I put the pressure here. So when it gets to like everything is like, if something's super wet, my grip wants to slide up. Normal conditions, it doesn't. It just stays there. So when it's wet, I do have to use like a rosin bag or something. And if I use the rosin bag, it's paired up with the Jaeger rubber. It doesn't move. So I don't throat it. Because I feel like anytime I've throated it or heeled it, my scores just go to crap. Because I think it just puts too much pressure on the bow, and your bow can can dance around erratically at times. And what I mean I don't mean like bad, but just enough where you can see it in scores a little bit. So I don't. That's why I like the Jaeger grip. It's got a flat spot on it. I could push that flat spot right here. I could push it right towards the target.
Okay. The other thing on your tab, so like whenever I make a crawl, right? The reason that I shot that sniper tab actually was because it had a thin finger spacer in it.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I just like the finger spacer, but the thing is it kept my hand once I was from moving up and down on the tab, right? Because you can make a crawl, but your fingers may be a little high on the tab or a little lower than normal. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do do you just keep that little bungee tight, or
So no, it's pretty loose. So
you
I
just
do,
like line your fingers up with the top of the tab, or
nope. So I do it. It's the same every time. Like I have my arrow here, right? So loose, boom, bump the knock every time. So it puts the tab in the same position every time. Fingers in the same position every time.
I see. So
That's
it
how I
kind of
do it.
lines it up together.
Yeah. So yeah, I
Okay.
always bump the arrow, so it puts everything right where it needs to. And once you bump the arrow, the bungee's loose, but it's tight. It doesn't move.
Right.
But it's not like cut your circulation off tight. It's just snug. So that never moves. Once I bump it, once I bump it, it doesn't move. So when I crawl down the string, most of the time I don't even use my thumbnail. I just stare at what line. So I run like a 25,000 serving. So usually it's hard to see them at first, but once you shoot your string for a week or so, the string gets a little dirtier. So you can kind of see which strand I need to come to. And then most of the time I don't even use my thumb to move it because it will move your fingers just a little bit. But I just usually just stare at it and just bring the top of the tab down.
I've seen you do that, and I've wondered how in the world you can see that, but that makes sense because I've been using like 018, I think, or 016, I think,
Yeah, that's tough.
serving, so I can't see that.
I used to use 014, and I couldn't do that. And then I tried to 118, and it's so I'm in that 25,000s. It makes the strands on the string a little thinner, but I run the large groove knock, so it's not usually that bad. I'm still running like 18 strand, I think. So, but I
And
tried
you
to
don't have any issue out of that?
no, I've tried the 30,000s before, and that lays flat. But then now I'm down to like a 14 strand, which it doesn't really matter. But the 30,000s was too much. It was too thick. Like
Yeah.
I would have it on some of my crawls, like if for yard, like the 25 per yard is pretty close. Like on my mark, if my mark, I can look at it. I'm like, all right, I'm mid strand. Okay, if I got to come down a yard, okay, I just come down one full wrap. But the 30 was kind of weird because it was like that wrap would cover almost two, because it wouldn't lay round. It would, at that point it got really thick and it would just lay kind of almost flat, like, and so it would start stretching into like 2 yards per wrap.
And one more question too. On your tab, when you make marks, what tape do you use?
I just use a just a label. Yeah, and I'll just slice it, the right, a certain thickness, and I'll put a little bit super glue on the tab and then just stick it right on, and then I'll put my marks. So I don't have the tab on me, but say the Yoast tab, right? You have your back plate, but then you have like that little taper, right? So I'll run two pieces of tape. I'll run a tape on the little taper, and then I'll run a tape on the big flat part. And I'll start with my marks on the big flat part, and then once I get them finally, because there'll be a bunch of iterations. There'll be erases and then move the line. Then I'll put the permanent ones on the skinny part, and then I'll rip that old part back off and put a new part, and then I'll just take them and just extend them.
I have the worst time.
It's a
making
little harder
marks like that.
It's a little harder on the Yoast doing it that way. So there are tabs out there that have like independent, like the sniper, you can move the wire down and stuff. But I don't know.
It's such a pain in the rear to do, though. I mean,
Yeah,
it's worse because you got to take the whole tab apart. Like,
yeah.
so I never could even really use that much.
And for me, I'm not like my dexterity and my fingers kind of suck, so I'd be always like constantly bumping it and then just move them all and then be like,
Yeah.
start all over again. That's why I always like putting my own marks in there because I can't screw that up. Like,
Yeah.
that's something that that equipment is not going to fail on me. Because I could just put the label on there, and when I finally get it done, I just re-pencil them in, and then I could just coat it again with a thin layer of super glue or nail polish to make it waterproof, and I can't screw that up. And it's on the brass, so it's easy. Like, I just take my Leatherman and just get underneath the glue and just slowly pop it off, and they'll just come off clean.
Make my own marks, and Nathan kind of talked me into doing that. And I mean, it's definitely better. Like, I remade my marks down in Paris because I screwed up, and that's the only drawback I had was I made marks, and then like the first day, and knew like after like 3 targets because they were all really similar and where they were at yardage wise. My 25 was just off. I was shooting way high, and so anyway, I kind of guessed at it, and it wasn't like way different, but so what I would end up doing is it got confused is I would aim lower and then I would guess at it my crawl. So by the time I got through, it was like terrible. And I was like, God, what am I doing? So that was a little frustrating. But once we got done shooting there in the morning, I went back and ended up making all new marks on there. And that worked out much better. But yeah, that's frustrating though. I wish there was something to like some adjustment, like where you could actually have something and move up and down.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that you just can't fight. If that one day you might not be paying attention, but your head positioning might be different. Like if you stick your arm way out there, right, and then you're like looking at a certain point where you're aiming at with your finger, and if you move your head down a little bit, that finger is going to move on that impact. So you're like, if you move it up, your finger is going to come down. So if you move back, you're going to actually have to aim higher to hit that same point with your arrow. So your impact's going to be higher. And if you have your head down, you're actually going to hit lower because your finger's moving and you have to readjust it to aim. So that's something that you might have been doing and you're not knowing it, or so like that's something that like every day your marks might not be set in stone. Like, so I know some days I don't fight it, right? If I have all these marks for field and I go out and the target is 30 meters and I shoot my first arrow, make a great shot, and I hit like it's 32 meters. I hit like top of the 4-ring. I'm like, okay. My next arrow, I will readjust and I'll shoot it for, like, I'll shoot it like, okay, so I shot high. So instead of being 30, it hit like it's 28. All right, well, my next arrow, I'm going to shoot for like 29. And if I'm still on top of the 5-ring, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to shoot 2 yards less every single target until it starts correcting. Eventually, usually corrects. Not always, but eventually it will. Some days we're just stronger. Some days we have more flexibility. Some days we wake up, we're stiffer. So our marks, they're not set in stone. You have to be more adaptive. Like if I know I'm hitting, like I'm 2 targets in on 3D and I'm hitting a yard hot, I'm like, okay, well, I'm guessing everything. I'm just going to take a yard off. And we're just going to roll that way until it doesn't work. And then when it doesn't work, just readjust to, to where it is. And that's the hard thing about archery is you have to be proactive, and you're proactive in your reactiveness. You just can't sit there and let it come to you. You have to adapt fast, especially 3D, because we only get 1 arrow a target, and usually it's just 30 or 40 arrows, and then you're done.
That's all I got, man. That's my whole.
No, that's good stuff. The other day,
giant book of questions.
Yeah, last weekend I shot a mock round field, marked round, and I made notes. as I went, and I mixed the distances up, so I didn't shoot them like in a graduating, getting farther, closer, or anything. I just mixed everything up, and I wrote down all my notes as I went, and I didn't adjust any tensions, and I didn't adjust any crawls from baseline. I went through like Saturday, I got all my crawls, which, a lot of times you kind of, a couple arrows at a distance and you move, and I just kind of did it that way. And then I ran like a baseline tune. So I knew at the close stuff I was going to hit stiff, and I knew at the far stuff I was going to hit a little weak. And in the middle, I was going to be kind of down the middle. And made notes. I didn't make any adjustments. I just shot for score. And I'm looking at the notes right now, and all of the farther stuff from 35 and out, I have to I hit low. So the crawl's got to come up. And then it looks like most of the closer stuff I was actually hitting high. So, that's that when we talk about people making marks in like cold form, standing on a distance for a while, you got to get normal to that form and shoot. And then, but you move. So if I shoot 50 meters, I was going to go low, and then I was going to walk up to 5 meters, and I was going to blow off the top of that. If I would have went to a tournament with that, and by all rights, these marks were good. Saturday, I would have told you, like, oh, I got my marks. But, people need to go through periods of time and know, and then even know, like Demmer just said, if you just got to make it, you got to make the movement. If everything's a half mark off, just shoot the rest of the time a half mark.
Yeah, I think it's important, like when I'm setting up a field tune, that my crawls are not determined in one day. Like, no, they're determined over a course of probably 3 to 5 days. They're never a single day. And it's important that you don't sit there and just pound a single distance over and over and over again to develop that mark. Because that could be the same trap when you're running into doing your 3D marks, right? If you're trying to do your marks at, like, say, whatever, if it's 30 meters for field or 30 yards for 3D, and you do nothing but pound 30, and you might start out a little bit low, but you're like, all right, well, I'm just going to get into this and see where it goes. And then you just sit there, pound, you're 20 arrows in. All of a sudden, that arrow that started low is, boom, it's dead center, because your desire to hit the center is more important than a lot of times than having the same exact form. So you're gonna adjust a little bit. Like, all right, I'm hitting a little, okay, we're just not even thinking about it. You're like, okay, now you're starting to pull back a little further because you're trying to naturally adjust to it. But the best way to get your marks for 3D or field is just constantly bounce between distances. Get your initial marks in, and then Ryan does it. I do it when I'm doing like the mark field round. I will write down my notes. I'll keep my score, my tension marks, and where the group actually hit. So, like, it might be like I go through my notes and I have my marks almost done, and I get to the 20-yard mark. I'm like, okay, I'm bottom 5 ring constantly. Like, this day I'm bottom 5 ring, the next day I'm bottom 5 ring, next day I'm bottom 5 ring. I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to move that a yard. And then, over the course of a week, that's going to be my final mark. And that's going to be all my final marks. I'm going to have all that notation, 2 yards off on this one. So the next day I'm going to readjust. I'm like, on my notes, I'm like, I'm going to shoot it for 2 yards off this time and see where it happens. And then if it hits dead center, then I know I'm 2 yards off on that mark. I'm going to move it 2 yards. But it's always constantly bouncing around, always keeping yourself on your toes, so you don't do the same thing over and over again, and then just your body naturally readjusts to get you to hit the center. And that's what's dangerous, doing it in any format, whether it be 50 meters or 3D or field. You have to do cold shots, warm shots. It's just, you just got to take that variable of readjusting subconsciously out of the equation. I can't tell you how many times I've done it twice. I can tell you how many times I've done it. I've done it twice, where I start my marks at 50 meters, and then I'll just pound 50 until I get the mark, go to 45, get my mark, I get down to 5, I get my mark, I go back to 50 meters, and my body adjusted that much. I'm 4 yards off at 50 meters because through that whole round, I kept readjusting to get the mark to fit.
Yeah.
I've done that twice, and that was it. And then from then on, I go to like 30, shoot a couple arrows, make a mark, shoot a couple more arrows. Okay, I might shift my mark. Okay, I'm going to be in this vicinity area. 30's done. I'll go to 40, and then I'll go to 5. I'll go to 50, and just that constant bouncing around will keep you on your toes, and you will actually develop your true marks that way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
By accident, that's how I did my marks at Pierce last weekend. Was I was just bouncing back and forth, making sure everything was right, and I'd done it at random, and it worked. But and I went out there and shot yesterday a little bit, and everything was still on. But I think my head position, I think you're right on with that head position thing, because I feel the string on my nose right here, and I always kind of like settle into that just to get. And I think that's a lot of the reason why I don't use string blitter anymore, because I feel like that sets my head position a little bit. But what was happening is I think I kept having my head up a little bit rather than just trying to keep it level, which is probably my biggest issue, really, is head position. And I don't know, I feel like I have a lot of them.
And that's my shot that I shoot is I put myself in the most comfortable position all the time to keep that consistency. I might not have your ideal form, your ideal like straight up posture, but for me that's really awkward. I can't do that. I can't do that consistent because it's too awkward. If it's too awkward for me, the fingers come off the string different. They don't come off the same. They're hesitant. They're static. There's just too many variables in that if I'm out of my comfort zone. So I might come back and I might lean in a little bit, but that's my comfortable position. So that's what, like, I've never been a proponent of you need proper form. I'm more of a proponent you need to be in your most comfortable form.
Comfortable, yeah.
Yeah. And if you can develop that where you're in your comfort zone, that's where everything's going to want to graduate to a more consistent position. I find if I try to stand up vertical and all that other jazz, I can't get in alignment easy. Everything's awkward, and I've tried it for extended periods of time, but scores weren't as good. So if you're not in a comfortable shooting position, you're just not going to be as consistent as you can if you're in a comfortable position.
To me, maybe 2.5. Well, in 21, I guess. No, I think it was 22. I shot a tournament in Foley, and I used to have like a more of a just a high anchor like right here on the eye tooth. I shot okay. Like my best rounds ever were like 88s, like a 188 and a 3D ASA. And that was like literally the absolute best that I could ever get, and then I always smacked my nose, so I had to wear the tape, and everything. And I got frustrated with it because I would bleed like almost every time. So I got back home from Foley and I went, I just tried that low anchor, and it's not actually that low, I guess. I'm right under the corner of my mouth, in that bone divot.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I didn't hit my nose, and like immediately, like I shot it for like 3 or 4 days. I was just comfortable, you know what I mean? And so, and I fight that still because I feel like I would do better if I had a higher anchor and I didn't have such a giant crawl. But I think at some point you just got to deal with whatever. It's not going to be perfect. So I deal with a giant crawl and terrible tuning habits. So that's just where I'm at, but I'm comfortable when I shoot and I can hold, you know what I mean? Like I'm in a good position for holding, which I think is important for me. But my scores went up huge. I started shooting mid 90s rounds every time now. You know what I mean? Let's say I just had a bad one goofy shot or whatever, but my indoor improved tremendously, like by 20 points, whenever I got comfortable. So that was a huge thing for me for sure. Ideal either. because I'm like super open stance.
Yeah.
You know, and it isn't that I tried to be proper either. Is what's funny about it is it's just what worked. You know,
Yeah.
like I watched you shoot a bunch, tried to shoot just like you do. I watched, you know, pretty much everybody shoot and just really learned off of YouTube a lot of that stuff and just found something that was comfortable, you know, and that's kind of where I ended up. So that's
Yeah.
super important.
You
for
said
sure.
you shoot open. I shoot closed, and nobody says you need to. Nobody promotes shooting closed, but I shoot like direct line, like my feet, my arms, direct line. But that's where I'm comfortable. If I shoot open, I always feel like I'm imbalanced. It's I don't know. It's never worked that great for me.
Different builds. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I would have never thought I would. I feel like I feel goofy watching myself shoot. Like if I record anything and I'm like,
It is
golly,
goofy,
man.
but it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do. I feel goofy. I'm like, man, why do I do that? It looks so stupid. But you know what? It's just comfortable. It's just where I'm at.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's all I got.
Yeah, as long as you're in a good, strong holding position and you're comfortable, that's all that matters.
All right.
All right. Well, that's all I got, fellas.
I think we've covered everything field archery.
Unlike y'all, I have to get up and go to work in the morning.
Same here.
Yeah.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Not me. I'm off next 2 days.
Do you normally work on Saturdays or just random?
It's random.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll work Sundays too. If I have to take some time off during the week, I'll work all
I
weekend.
worked a couple weekends leading up to Lubbock.
Sure.
Okay, yeah. Man, I don't understand why y'all are so against it. I don't get it. I mean, we drive plumb up to Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
We can't even get y'all to show up to one.
Well, it makes sense. Summertime, you might as well have it in the heat of the desert, and then come indoor national. You might as well have it on off the lake in the cold.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, but you got to say that you would much rather go to Lubbock than Chicago.
I guess push comes to shove.
I don't know.
Okay, whatever.
I think the attendance in Lubbock will be fine. You'll get a lot of college kids for sure. More college kids shooting that.
Yeah. Man, it seems like there's a bunch of college kids shooting now.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, I haven't been shooting for a long time, but just from watching like past videos and stuff, it seems like there's a ton of them.
Yeah, they're getting more and more involved for sure.
It's pretty sweet. There ought to be some really, really good shooters come out of that probably every year then.
Yeah, the one kid just transitioned from recurve to bare bow and shot a new national collegiate record.
Yeah, I seen that.
Who was that?
A young gentleman from Texas A&M just this last weekend.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We shot with a dude in Minden, an Olympic recurve guy that was a stud, man. He was a freaking good shooter, but he said he was thinking about switching over. I think he shot like 14 up or 16 up or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. He shot really, really well. Like really well. But I don't know. I can't remember his name, but he's a nice fellow. Young guy. He might have been in college, actually. I'm not sure. Anyway.
Yeah, usually not that many Olympic shooters shooting 3D.
No, we only have like one or two. We got to shoot with Enoch. Have you ever heard of that guy? I don't know. He's from Texas, I guess.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, we shot with him, and he shot pretty good. I think he shot like 8 up or something. For a little while, I thought we was all gonna be super close. It's always interesting shooting with Olympic because at first I would thought that they were just going to murder us, and it's really not that different most of the time. But, like back here at home now, we try to shoot with the young, I don't know, I guess it's the young kids. It's just 30-yard known stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But then it gets fun because like we can compete, you know what I mean? Like we're super close normally back and forth. Yes, I'm playing with a bunch of kids over there, but dude, it's a blast shooting with them.
You're shooting a cub class then, like 8 to 10-year-old.
No, God, no. No, there are some kids that just put us down badly, but
Yeah.
normally it's pretty close. Like if you're shooting in the upper 90s, or something, you're doing pretty.
Yeah.
You're going to keep up with most of them.
Yeah, there's
Or the men's pins. That's fun.
There was I know in the IBO there, when I first started shooting, I shot at one point we shot the same stakes. I think it was 25 yards, and the young kids would just pound, like they'd be 30 up on 40 arrows,
Oh my God.
and we'd be 30 down.
Was that all unknown?
Yeah, known. Yeah,
You like unknown 3D better or known?
no, I don't. I'm not a huge fan of unknown.
I hate it.
It's okay. It's just not my favorite.
Yeah.
I only have so much time, and I'd rather not. If I didn't have to, I'd rather spend more time shooting than practice judging.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's my whole thing.
It's part of the game, but I'd rather just spend time shooting than walking in the woods with a rangefinder.
Yeah.
Yep,
Tim Gillingham says it best, and I'll get a lot of flack from the trad guys, but whatever. If you want to get into a judging competition, then shoot unknown. If you want to get in the shooting competition, shoot known.
Yeah, no, 100%.
I would agree. You could take somebody very good at judging and just be a mediocre shot, and you're gonna have a handful. If you're just, I don't judge very good. I have to practice like crazy, and even then, I don't judge very good. And they'll beat the pants off me, just because of that. Maybe I'm a better shooter, but if I don't know the distance, it doesn't matter.
I could judge pretty good. I just got to spend time doing it.
Yeah.
I got to spend at least 4 weeks at it, but not like hard, just like an hour a day. It's just annoying because there's other things I could be doing instead of that.
Yeah.
But I don't usually get outjudged very often, but I'd rather just shoot.
Yeah.
I know everybody that's getting ready for the 3D trials, like Mike and Nathan was going to do it, but decided not to. I was going to do it and then just decided I didn't really, for some reason, I just don't care that much about it.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like I have anything to prove or any of that, I guess, to go to that. Like, I would love to go. It'd be a blast, but man, the judging thing I wasn't a huge fan of, and the other thing was I don't even know what animals they're going to shoot. So their 10 rings may be this small. I don't know.
I would, if I was ever to do, knowing what I know, if I ever was to try to make an international team, I just do field. Because field's going to be consistent. And when it comes down to it, you have a little bit more arrows to determine the winner. 3D, it comes down to 4 arrows.
Yeah.
And that's all it comes down to. Like the whole trip comes down to 4 arrows. So there's luck. It all depends if you misjudged that one and the other person didn't, or vice versa. I got into the one match where we shot our first target, and we shot I think it was a fox that was just freaking like this big, and they stuck it out at 30 meters. I judged it for 27.5, and I just missed the belly. And the other kid I shot against shot it for 20 and missed by a mile, but we scored the same. I missed the 11 by like 3.5 inches, and he missed it by like 3 feet, and we scored the same. They both missed, but it's still like that's what you run into. Like,
yeah,
where if that was an elk, there's a chance I would have been a 10 and he'd be a 5. It's just there's the luck factor creeps in a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure.
And
I think that's why I kind of, I don't know, I guess I've kind of shifted a little more to the target side a little bit more. Like I enjoy 3D, like I have fun, but I had just as much fun even with indoor. And indoor at first I thought was stupid. Like I was like, this is so dumb, and And I started shooting it, and I was like, no, it's fun. I mean, because I just shoot against myself regardless of whoever I'm actually shooting against, because I just want to shoot better than I did before, or at least the same or something, but um, I don't know. I've ended up, there's a definite aiming spot, like you know where to put your arrow, and I like that part of that. But I don't know, as far as what I've been started to kind of turn into now is I like the 50 meter probably. Maybe I'm not very good at it really. I'm okay, but it's probably my favorite so far.
Yeah, I don't hate it. That's for sure. I like it. It's not like it's not like indoor where you should probably hit that gold every single time. Like, but the outdoor stuff adds that little bit of variability of possibly wind or sun and the arrow glare on the sun in the beginning of the round and end of the round. And you get to shoot. Like, the one thing I hate about 3D is if you're stuck in a bad group, you're in the bad group the whole time.
Yeah.
Where you're shooting 50, if you're stuck in a bad group, then you can just walk, 5 feet and talk to your friends that you want to talk to and just hang out and have the camaraderie there. It's
and there's
all
time between rounds
Yeah,
or
and
ends.
it's all there. You're all on the same equal playing field. You're shooting all in the same conditions. Where I've shot 3D where I get up to a target and the way the sun was coming in, I mean, you're shooting at a black target in a black hole. You look through your your binoculars. I had 1550s, and it was so dark in that hole, you didn't know which was the rear end of the target and which was the head. And you come through 15 minutes later, the sun's on it, and you can see everything plain as day.
Yeah. That's the gripe right now, I think. Maybe not the gripe for a lot of people, but like for ASA, the Friday option thing, because like it could be pouring rain on Sunday, you know what I mean? And then you've already shot your round, which it definitely sucks, but everybody has the option. So I guess it is what it is, but that part sucks because of the vacation time for people and whatnot. But yeah, no, I get that for sure.
Yeah, that's the one thing I never liked about I've shot the IBO for years because I grew up in IBO country, right? So the 3 legs, you can, if you shoot the first 2, you have to shoot peer grouped in the third if you shot good enough. But the other 2, you can go just to the sign up, the check in, and you can go with, most of the time you can go with whoever you wanted to, and they'll just send you out. Like, you didn't get matched up with your competition, so you can shoot with whoever. You can shoot with 2 kids that shoot compound, that shoot, like, say you're at the 30-yard stake, they shoot 35-yard stake, so they have to shoot first every single time because you're not allowed to shoot the close stake before the far stake. So they don't want anybody walking in front of stakes, and people will get like, oh, that stake's 6 yards in front, I can see he took 6 steps, and that kind of stuff. So they try to keep those shenanigans down. But you can shoot with, compound shooters that just pound the 10, so you always have something to aim at. Or you can shoot with, friends, and you didn't have to shoot with your competition. So that's the one thing I didn't like about that, and I think that's part of the reason why you probably don't like the option where you can shoot within your comfortable group and not have the external forces of shooting with, like, top level competition, or maybe the chance of having to shoot with a difficult shooter or something like that. You can just go out and shoot with your group.
Yeah,
that's my gripe with IBO for sure.
Yeah.
Or I know the one tournament we did, we shot on Friday. I think we shot all 40, and weather was rolling in on the weekend.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of other guys, they couldn't get the time off, so they came down on the weekend and they shot pouring down rain, and it showed in scores. I mean, they didn't stand a chance, and it was like, that's kind of stupid.
And that's one thing. If you want to be an archer, one that wants to be, people want to look up to you and stuff, you got to think about your credibility and stuff. one of the first IBO shoots when we got into the team event. Mark was a good friend of mine, Mark Lind, and we were both. He was shooting RU, I was shooting trad, and we were both kind of near the top of our classes. Some days we were, and some days we weren't. But we went out and shot one, and we were both on a heater. Like they paired us up with 2 randoms, and we went and we were on a heater. We ended up winning. We both won our classes by quite a bit that shoot, and we get off of the stake on the last one, and we're like, we gotta think about changing this because we're gonna get off of this, even though it was legit and we shot great. Like the optics don't look right. Like they're like, oh, he went out with his friend and shot that amazing score, and then you get off, and then rather than being happy that you got off the course, that you shot great, probably the best you're gonna shoot all year, potentially, to like, oh crap, people are going to look at the score and they're going to be like, there's just going to be questions all over and in the air, and you just gotta think about stuff like that too. If you go to a tournament where you have the options, think about the optics, think about what your competitors are going to think about. Like if you're going and doing like things where people can look at you like you're cheating, they're going to think that because they got beat. Not because you didn't cheat, not because you could do everything right, but if they think they're getting shortcutted out of stuff, they're naturally going to go to that, and so you got to think about stuff like that.
No, that's a good point. Yeah.
That was the last time Mark and I shot together. Like it was the first time, and it was the last time because we got off the course and we're like, how many people are going to actually think that we shot this? Like, we just...
Yeah, that's crazy. Yep. Pro tip. All right, I'm good.
No. John, you may hang out for a second. I don't know if Ryan told you, but
sure.
Let him end this deal out.
All right. Thanks, everybody. See you.